Welcome back to another Stand on Guard. I'm your host, David Krayden. And when we come back, I want to discuss a little bit more about universal basic income and what it's now being called.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need the resolve to resist.
Yes, please ring that bell, like the station. I had a complaint yesterday in the comments section. Somebody saying, "Stop asking for money." I'm not asking for money. And I'm never or rarely ever ask for money. But I have to say at the beginning of the broadcast, like the broadcast, so we can beat the YouTube algorithm. And please ring the bell, because that way we beat Justin Trudeau's censorship. And that's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. It's about beating the censorship, so you know when the next broadcast is coming up and you're able to tune in. I had one person tell me they had to subscribe 4 times. 4 times. A lot of people noticed the fact that we hit our $15,000 15,000 membership ceiling by December 31st, and suddenly by January 31st, we lost about 60 members overnight. So something is going on, yes, obviously. So as we climb towards 20,000, that's our next objective. If you need to subscribe again, please do so. And believe me, I don't like to waste any time talking about this, but it's necessary because as new media, as independent media, this is part of the action plan. We need to work together on this. And yes, once in a while, I'll say, if you want to support me, the details are there. And I'll leave that to you, because I'm not one of these people who wants to spend 5 or 10 minutes begging for money. I grew up in an era where televangelists did that, and it used to bother me because I thought it was an affront to my faith. So I'm not going to be doing that. I never have. I never will. Once in a while, I'll mention it. But primarily at the beginning, I say, yes, like the broadcast so we can beat the algorithm. We need to get the viewership up. And that's how we win the case. That's how we do this. So thank you for listening again. Universal basic income. I brought it up a little while ago. Guess what they're calling it now? And here they are. There's 2 bills, as I explained about a week ago. There are 2 bills. One is in the Senate and one is in the House. You know, there's S233 and C223. But guess what they're calling it? It's not universal. It's unconditional basic income. Unconditional. In other words, hands up. Look, we've got a gun to your head, and this is how it's going to work. Now, I showed you this news release here from the Senate of Canada. Once again, this happened on October 17th. That's what, almost 3 months ago now. Nobody talked about this until the Christmas break. Suddenly, it became the news of the hour on social media, on new media, and even some legacy media. Now, I've got a piece coming out in Human Events this week discussing this. I'm also going to be discussing this on Redacted because it has taken on a life of its own, this whole issue. And I find it quite interesting. I have here, the written submission for the pre-budget consultations in advance of the upcoming federal budget. And once again, if we get back to this slide here, this is all being pushed forward by a so-called nonprofit called UBI Works. I have not been able to substantiate whether or not they are getting any government money. You go to their website, and all they tell you is that, hey, we're getting grassroots money. I can't even look at their website because I've been blocked. They blocked me. Now, why do you think they blocked me? They blocked me because of the broadcast a week ago, where I not only criticized the program as being completely unfeasible and completely unworkable and catastrophic for the economy, but I even questioned how the senator introducing this bill didn't even seem to know which province she was representing. She kept talking about some mythical indigenous land that you can't find on a map and it isn't even real. She couldn't say she was from the province of Ontario. I can't deal with people. I am sick to death of politicians and bureaucrats who think it's so cute and so smart and so trendy to say that they're standing on this indigenous plot of land that was unsurrendered and it's not part of Canada and it's not part of a Canadian province. It's all BS. I'm sick of this. I'm sure you are too. But I really I really was angry to see this senator who has the gall to suggest that universal basic income is now unconditional and it's a human right and it better happen or else. And she can't even name the province she represents as a senator. That's bloody ridiculous. And I'm sure we'd agree. So, anyway, this UBI Works blocked me from their website because they were so damn mad about my broadcast. Oh, what the hell. Anyway, I'm looking at their recommendations, their written submissions. Recommendation number 1 that the government implement a universal basic income, which includes a guaranteed minimum income of $2,000 a month. There it is. That's not, I didn't extract that figure from air when I mentioned it. Reducing by 50 cents for every dollar of employment income and by $1 for every dollar of other income. What the hell does that mean? Other income? Okay, so you're going to get apparently, you'll get your stipend reduced if you have a real job. So if you make $4,000 at a real job a month, you won't be getting any. But if you make $2,000 in a real job, you'll still be getting $1,000 of your unconditional basic income. Recommendation number 2, that the government implement a universal basic income, which includes a $500 a month universal dividend to provide Canadians with the means to participate and reskill in an increasingly automated economy. So, what's one of the arguments for this UBI? Well, it's going to somehow supersede all other social programs that are extracting money from you and giving it to people. It's going to override, subsume all other economic welfare programs. This says it doesn't. Not only do they want a UBI, they want a $500 a month stipend in addition to that for something called reskilling. That can mean just about anything. So don't believe to begin with that they're serious about this somehow supplanting, subsuming, replacing existing social programs. Do you know the bureaucracy that's in place to protect those social programs, to keep them in place? Because those social programs require a lot of public service union employees to administer the programs. And the government workers are not going to want to give those up. And neither is the federal government. So this is just going to make an already bloated bureaucracy even bigger and more unmanageable. and more unstoppable. And it's going to create more administrative burden, more financial burden than already exists. And anybody who suggests this is somehow going to simplify the welfare process in Canada is mad, is absolutely uninformed, unintelligent, and is not thinking this through. Now, explain the last time why it's not going to work. It's inflationary to begin with. Give everybody $2,000 and your $2,000 isn't worth a dime anymore. And that's really what it comes down to. But not only that, think about this for a minute. Do you really think $2,000 a month is going to do it? Do you think $2,000 a month is going to do it? Which, of course, is going to cost trillions of dollars and will double the national debt within 2 years. Do you think that's going to work? Because can you live on $2,000 a month if that's all you want to make? Very, very difficult to live on $2,000 a month when the price of an apartment alone is $1,500 to $2,000 a month in most Canadian cities. And believe me, you ain't going to get a mortgage when you're making $2,000 a month. No bank is even going to let you in the front door to talk about it. So $2,000 a month isn't going to work. So do you think that's the end of the discussion? No, it's going to be the beginning of the discussion because $2,000 will not be enough. And they'll keep increasing it and increasing it and increasing it until we're basically giving everybody the same wage as people who have to work receive. And that's what it comes down to in this. And that's why. What are we going to do? People say, well, stop complaining about it and offer solutions. Get informed. Tell your member of parliament, whether it's he or she is a liberal, a conservative, a new Democrat, or God forbid, a bloc. Tell them this is unworkable. Get informed on the issues. There are no major economists backing this plan. This UBI works as a camouflage, I believe, camouflage organization that is representing a fringe minority of academics who think this is a good idea. And I really believe they are connected to the Liberal Party and the Trudeau government. I haven't yet to prove that, but I think I can. And I think I will. I believe this is a devastating policy, a very bad idea. So, what do you need to do? Get informed, get the facts, tell your member of parliament this is going to astronomically increase the national debt. The $2,000 a month will never be enough. The $2,000 a month is going to devalue your savings and your salary. The $2,000 a month is going to be inflationary spending and it's going to cause greater inflation, higher mortgage rates, and on and on and on. Get informed about why this is a bad bill, why this is communism. The government does not owe everybody a living. You do not have your hand stretched out and tell the state, provide for me, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. That's what Karl Marx said. That's how he described his economic system. And that's what this is all about. What's the difference? So tell your member of parliament this is nothing short of Marxism. This is blatant socialism, communism. This is an attempt to steal your money. And this is an attempt by a bunch of idiots who really think this is a solution to poverty, who think this is a solution. And they actually say this is going to grow prosperity. It's bullshit. Clear and simple. It can't be plainer. And that's what this is about. And we need to fight this before it becomes another policy area of agreement between the parties. And God damn, I want to hear the Conservative Party in the House and outside of the House condemn this. Because I've told you before, Deputy Conservative leader Melissa Lantsman, before she was elected to the House of Commons, endorsed universal basic income because she said conservatives need to be in front of this and because it's going to eliminate all the other social programs and simplify the welfare process. Wrong. That's not what's going to happen. I hope she's wised up. I hope she's taken some smart pills since then. As my old friend, member of parliament, former member of parliament Dan McTeague likes to say, I hope she's taken some smart pills and realizes this is not a solution. I want to show you a video because you see, I want to show you how well funded these folks are because it's quite interesting. Let's watch this. Oh yes, wanted to show you this too. Here we are. I am blocked. UBI Works has blocked me. Anyway, should have brought that slide up sooner, but I wanted you to see that because it's quite interesting. UBI has blocked me because they didn't like me questioning their little program. They didn't like me questioning their senator who can't understand geography and doesn't seem to think she represents a province, not some mythical indigenous parcel of land. Very upset about that. But let's watch the video now. Yes, you see this? This is on X. And it actually reminds me of a pharmaceutical ad because we've got all of these happy people having a great time, living it up, having the best of life. And more than 3.4 million Canadians live in poverty. What makes you think that they still won't be living in poverty if they're getting $2,000 a month? Sorry. And oh, look at this happy family here. Yes. And the Canadian flag is flying over this program. And of course, yes, we'll explain how it works for you. Maybe they can find a couple of economists who are on side on this. I'm sure they will. But it's not going to convince me. Yeah. Pile up the pennies. That actually says a lot without the commentary because that's really what your $2,000 is going to amount to when you start giving it out to everybody. It's going to be pennies. But this is a very professionally done video. And all you're missing here is some very annoying theme music that goes with it. But it's professionally done. I think they're getting some big money. And I think it's coming from the government of Canada. But like I say, I have to prove that. And that's something I can't prove right now. But it's very well done. And I think it's very effective. If you know nothing about this issue, and if you think, oh, this is an opportunity to save the poor, to eradicate poverty, and to get rid of all of those superfluous social welfare programs that really don't seem to help people, just seems to make the government bigger. Well, this is going to make the government 10 times as big. And it's not going to end here. But here we go. So you think $2,000 a month, you're going to be walking on the beach someplace, having a great time. I got news for you, folks. UBI doesn't work. UBI doesn't work. In fact, UBI is going to be a disaster. And we got to keep our thumb. Why do you think this thing came up over Christmas? It's because this is a trial balloon and they want to see the level of opposition. I'm very disappointed. I've heard nothing from the Conservative Party about this. I'm going to be talking to Maxime Bernier shortly. He's going to be back on the show in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to be talking about this with Maxime, who's a good friend. And I encourage Maxime to stay in politics because we need him to keep the Conservative Party honest, so they don't embrace policies like this, so they don't break the bank on Ukraine. So they continue with their promise to defund the CBC, as we discussed yesterday. I think that's very important. Now, I had a story up in the Post Millennial about the issue we discussed on Saturday, but Justin Trudeau's plane breaking down. Now, there's a couple of things I didn't mention in that broadcast that I mentioned in the story. And of course, some of the folks picked up on it because the irony of this whole story is that Justin Trudeau staying at a former slave plantation. I mean, what a guy. Thank you, Justin. Always doing something where the optics aren't good. But I find it fascinating that I picked this story up Saturday, and immediately thereafter, I saw other independent media broadcasters pick it up, and the interest level was high, very high. And it wasn't until Monday morning that I started seeing opinion columns in the mainstream media questioning what in the hell was Justin Trudeau doing back on this at this exclusive private resort in Jamaica for the second year in a row. You might remember he got into a hell of trouble when he stayed with the Aga Khan because the Aga Khan had received government contracts. And what the hell was Justin Trudeau doing at the Aga Khan's private island? So Trudeau thought about this and he said, well, we'll go to Jamaica the next time and we'll stay with an old friend who just happens to be a donor for the Trudeau Foundation. But it won't cost the taxpayers a cent because it's all going to be free. Is this guy a classic slummer or what? He can't even pay for his own vacation. He's always got to get somebody else to pick up the tab. You know people like this when you go out to dinner or you go to the bar. They're the people who will wait and wait and wait until somebody else picks up the check. And they're usually the person with the most money in the bank. They're the richest person in the group, but yet somebody else has got to pay for them. And Justin Trudeau is that man. He's the one who stays at the table until somebody else picks up the check. There's a famous story about Pablo Picasso and Charlie Chaplin, both of whom were communists. They called themselves communists. Chaplin may be a socialist. Picasso called himself a communist. They were both far left in their economic theory and their politics. They once had lunch together in Switzerland, and they both refused to pick up the check because they were both not only leftists, but cheap leftists. Extremely cheap. And they waited literally for, I think it was 3 hours until one of them finally relented, picked up the check because they both expected somebody else to buy the meal. That's what Justin Trudeau is like. Somebody else is going to pick up the tab for all of his expenses. If it's not you, the taxpayer, it's somebody else. But I'm finally seeing some columnists out there saying something wrong with this picture, folks. Why is our prime minister staying at a resort that costs $9,300 a month? A night, excuse me, a night. Yeah, maybe a month would make more sense. But as people are suffering in Canada, as people can't afford to pay the bills, as people can't afford to gas their car, as people can't afford to heat their home. I just read a story this morning about a mother who's doing without food so her children can eat. People are lining up at food banks across the country in the freezing cold because they can't afford to buy groceries. And Justin Trudeau is living it up in the lap of luxury in Jamaica. Beautiful sunny climes, private pool, gorgeous white sand beach, all the amenities, the hot tub, the good food, the fine wine that he loves so much. And he's living like this. And I understand he's going to Australia this month too. He's taking a second trip to another warm part of the world so he can avoid the Canadian winter Where's he going to stay then? Another old friend of the family? We don't know yet, but believe me, I am going to find out. Because once again, he'll be slumming. And once again, he'll be living in luxury while you and I have to suffer here. While you and I can't seem to make enough money for the budget to work. And I know I'm talking to the converted here. You know that I'm saying what we all are feeling and what we all know is true. We're making the same amount of money we made a year ago or 2 years ago, but it's not going anywhere near as far. We feel like we're working harder than ever. We're working more than ever. And we're always out of money. Not a problem for Justin Trudeau. He can stay at a $10,000 a night resort and have a great time. And not even think that there's a problem with that picture. Not even think that that looks pretty damn hypocritical for a guy who does an end of the year interview and says, I feel your pain. I understand what Canadians are going through. Bullshit. You don't understand what Canadians are going through because you've never gone through it. You have lived in luxury from the time you were raised. It's always been smooth sailing for you. It's always been easy. And you don't understand what Canadians are going through this January or any January. It's always been a different kind of life for you. It's always been a different kind of existence because it's always been paid for. So it is an outrage. Yeah, and I bring it up again, not just because his plane broke down, brand new 2020 Canadian Forces Challenger, by the way. This wasn't the Polaris this time that broke down. It was a Challenger. And it's like, what, 4 years old? And they're breaking down? Yeah, that's an outrage. But it's more of an outrage he was in Jamaica in the first place doing that. And it's just, somebody said, well, why are you worried about Trudeau's vacations? Well, every time he leaves the country, I worry because he does something stupid. He says something stupid. Remember, every time he goes to India, he makes a complete ass of himself. Walks around in traditional Indian garb, tries the local dances, constantly has pictures taken. The last time he was in India, of course, he picked a fight with the Indian Prime Minister. And that didn't go down too well. And of course, yes, his jet, his Polaris that time, broke down and he was sitting on the runway for 2 days. But this time, yeah, he had another breakdown. But the real breakdown was in his ability to think. Going to Jamaica in December was not a good idea. It's not a good idea to pretend Canadians don't care and don't notice, because they do. So I am going to keep my finger on the universal basic income and on Trudeau's vacations, which will continue this month, and we're going to let you know what's going on. But until then, get informed about where this is. Go to that website, UBI Works, and just have a look at the crap, at the absolute lies that they are spreading on this website, and find out how this project is a lot more advanced than we knew. We know now. It's been in the works now for a year. We know that there's preparation, and we also know that this is also being discussed. This idea, universal basic income, is being discussed in the usual countries that are also discussing censorship. United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, United States. They're all talking about universal basic income at the same time, just like they all are talking about censoring misinformation and disinformation at the same time. Coincidence? No, because they're getting their orders and they're following their orders from the World Economic Forum and the globalist cadre that is infiltrated democratic governments around the world and are leading those cabinets by the nose. Thanks for watching today. A pleasure talking to you. God bless you.